Hello, everybody. Hello, Fortiana, aka Rudy. But okay, let me start off by introducing my topic. My topic is talking about juvenile boot camps and whether or not they're effective, and whether or not they set out to actually do what they're supposed to do, and that's to to prevent delinquency, to prevent recidivism with juveniles, and to hopefully start them off in the right track. Basically, the literature that I've gathered, almost every piece of literature except for one, and I've gathered over 7 or 8 pieces, and I've read several articles or whatnot in regards to this topic. Almost all of them agree that juvenile boot camps aren't really effective. They don't really prevent recidivism. They don't prevent continued delinquency, and overall, they don't really help, educate juveniles or make them grow more. They don't really teach them that much, anything new in boot camp. Most juveniles, when they get to boot camp, they just listen to the instructors, do whatever they got to do so they can get out of boot camp. So they don't really learn anything new. A lot of problems that boot camps have is just poor staff training, not a lot of funding, and it's just hard getting your point across when you have to use military type tactics to young kids that aren't really receptive towards that. Uh, for the most part, the kids that do go, they do try to get better, but the data suggests that not all of them actually end up doing good. Some of them end up dropping out. Some of them go to college. There's not a lot of actual raw data in regards to this, and that's what I propose for this research project is to gather up all this data. So basically, my research design is I'm gonna do a causal research design. It's gonna see if there's any causation exists between juvenile boot camp and recidivism, and whether or not the variables of graduation rate, of going to college and getting a job, if those are affected by going to boot camp. So there's a lot of variables in play right now, but it's basically to see if because of the juvenile boot camp being the independent variable, if that affects them going back to boot camp again, or if they go back to school and graduate, get a job, or go to college. The treatment is pretty harsh in boot camp at times. A lot of times, the students or the juveniles are sent there from their parents, and that kind of puts a real big gap between the relationship between them and their parents. While a lot of the parents feel that they have no choice, that's why they send them to boot camp. So they use it kind of like as a last resort. Boot camp started with 3 pilot programs, and they were on. Well, the percentage completion was pretty good at first. 3 programs started in Cleveland, in Mobile, Alabama, and Denver. Uh, Over 70% in each of those completed the program, but they found that the aftercare wasn't really there, and that's with most juvenile boot camps. That's where they fail, was the aftercare after the juvenile boot camp is not really there. The funding's not there, so they're not able to actually do better after the boot camp. That's why that's one of the primary reasons why they go back. Um, like I said, for the gathering the data, going back to the research design, I'm going to use 2 forms of data. I'm going to use quantitative and qualitative. The quantitative data, I'm going to use survey. I'm going to survey uh, the juveniles. I'm going to survey also workers that work in the juvenile justice system. And the questions is going to be 10 questions. It's going to be questions that you could answer yes or no, type of questions, just to get that data. And then I'm also going to gather records, graduation rates, uh, and also job placement rates and college attendance rates from from urban areas here in Texas. The urban areas I'm going to focus on is your Austin area, San Antonio area, Dallas, your Houston area, the Rio Grande Valley, and also El Paso area. Those areas are going to be the primary focus of gathering this data. So you got a lot of stuff going on too with the gathering data. The surveys are gonna survey 50 employees, randomized in those areas, and also it's gonna be the same for the juveniles in those areas. Each area is gonna be a 50-mile radius from the center, so that's the epicenter of the city, where the city's at. 50 miles out, that's gonna be the area of coverage that it's gonna be included in this proposal. So yeah, so you're looking at Austin, for example. Austin, it'll reach out all the way to San Marcos. So any juvenile detention center there or school, I'll gather data from there. All this is going to be compiled up, and it's going to be made into some charts, into some graphs or whatnot, so you can kind of see more or less where where these students were at after they left the juvenile boot camp. The randomized surveys, like I said, will have numerical answer choices, so that would also be able to be put into a quantitative data, so the user would be able to see it. The other part of the information gathering or the data collection will come from your qualitative data, and that's going to come from interviews with the juveniles and interviews with these criminal justice workers um, in the juvenile system. They're going to get actual questions, open-ended questions, and their responses are going to be recorded, and that's going to be more of your supplemental data to the quantitative data. Quantitative data will be the main data, but these interviews will be recorded and will be transcribed, and that's going to be a supplement, like I said, to the main data. So overall, there's going to be two forms of data, and the point with gathering both of those points of data is to see if causation exists between going to juvenile boot camp and whether that is the reason why some of these juveniles graduate, go to school or college, higher school, higher education, or get a job. And then the other form is going to be continued delinquency, going back to juvenile boot camp, or even worse, going to a juvenile detention center, or worse than that, going to a adult detention center. So all that's going to come into play. All this data is going to collaborate and see if we can draw conclusions